I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming today. The weather has given us a little bit of a break, but in spite of that, it's good to see this many people here. I want to thank many of you for the part you've helped play in planning this school, and the rest of you, I want to thank you in advance for all that you're going to do to help us get the school off to a great start. In a few minutes, we'll introduce some folks, but I would like to say a couple of words about the school itself. We look at this very much as a community school. One of the first things that we think about is that the school is being built on donated land, which was in itself a contribution to the community. The community had input on the design, on the architectural plans, and the name of the school. And after it's built, it'll be a community school in several ways when it's completed. It'll be built in a beautiful neighborhood setting, and it'll have community offerings such as the fields that will be outside, the park that'll be nearby, and the full-size gymnasium that will serve as a community center as well, we hope. So we're looking forward to a progressive, student-centered facility, and we think it's a symbol of the new Kingsport. It represents development, growth, opportunity with an education focus, and that's what Kingsport seems to be about. And at this time, I would like to recognize some folks that are here. We want to thank the architects that are here. We know, and I may miss some, we know that we have Ron Jones and Dennis Ward here from Barge Wagner. Thank you for coming and all you've done. We have our Board of Education. We'll introduce them at the end as a kickoff to Dr. Montgomery. But we have City Manager John Campbell in attendance. We have several of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Dennis Phillips, Mayor, is here. Thank him for coming. Ben Malakote, Vice Mayor. Didn't see him. Ken Marsh, thank you for coming. Larry Muncy, haven't seen him yet. Valerie Yo is present. Thank you. Gentry Shoup and Pat Shaw are both here. Thank you for coming. Our board is represented by Wally Boyd, Ron George, Pat Turner, our Vice President, Susan Lodahl, and our President of the Board, Dr. Randy Montgomery. And at this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Montgomery to say a few words, and if he'll come to the mic, Dr. Montgomery.
No, it really is good to see everybody here today. And as we all know, this has been kind of a wonderful and unique opportunity for this community. As we look past over about the past year or so, and we, as a school system, we're looking to solve some of the needs that we have, this opportunity arose. And as Dr. Kitzmiller used to say, we'd like to thank everyone who participated. Again, I think we can't reiterate how important it is to realize that in this community and for something like this to become a success, that it takes the work of everybody. It takes the work of the citizens of the community, it takes the work of the business of the community, and it takes the work of the government of the community. One of the things that you always hear is that education is one of the building blocks or the foundations of a community, and I've always kind of disagreed with that, because in this community I think it's a little bit different. I think the education, without education we can't have a lot of things, but with education, working with business, working with government, working with the citizens, we actually have a much better thing to work with, and actually education is more of the keystone of the community. It holds it all together. If any one of those areas aren't doing well or fail, the whole thing falls. But with education as the keystone of the whole thing, I think it really works well and allows everything to move forward, because as we say often that if education is doing well, the community is doing well, and if the community is doing well, then education is going to be doing well. And again, thank you all for being here today.
Now a few words from our City Manager, Mr. John Campbell.
Thank you very much, Richard. It is a real honor to be here today, to be a part of this important ceremony. One of the things that you clearly understand as a Tennessee city manager is that if you're going to have a great community, you got to have a great school system. I'm fortunate. I guess I learned at an early age that I was very blessed to have grown up in this school system and know how important it was. And that really taught me a lot of lessons in terms of what you should do to make sure that you have a great community, and is make sure that you put education first and try to have the best facilities possible. I think it's important as we look at this particular facility, and it's a huge investment, right now around $18 million. It sounds like a lot of money, but I think it's important to keep in perspective that you're building something that's a 5-6 generation facility here. It's hard for me to think about it, but the DB that I went to, which is now Severe, is in its 82nd year, 81st or 82nd year. Think about that investment, which seems so small or so large to those Kingsport people back in the 20s, but seems so small now in terms of the total value that's received. The school, the elementary school that I went to, built in the 30s, it's in its 75th or so plus years, Lincoln. So it's important to realize that while it does seem like a large investment, it's something for many generations to come, and will have a tremendous long-term impact in terms of the product that comes out of that particular building. The other part of course, is to have a great city, you have to have great neighborhoods. And I've always felt that if you could integrate a school into a neighborhood, you really had something special that becomes a really great economic draw. And again, I guess I was a product of my environment. If you look at some of the early school systems or schools in Kingsport, whether it be Johnson in the middle of a neighborhood or even Lincoln's 1 or 2 blocks off the main drag, it makes a difference when you have a school that can actually be an economic driver. So I am honored to be here today, and I certainly want to thank our elected officials for having the faith to build this facility and invest into Kingsport's future. I think they will see many dividends paid off, and certainly the cooperation between the school board and our board, mayor and alderman, has been great during this whole process, and I can't tell you how much that's appreciated for somebody that's been working in city government for a long time in Tennessee. It doesn't always go along that way, but I really appreciate the attitude of the way the two have worked together, and certainly appreciate the way that Richard and I have been working together also. So thanks again. Congratulations on a great day for Kingsport.
And now, Mayor Phillips.
To be as large a school as this is going to be, the swimming pool is kind of small, don't you think? But I guess we had to cut somewhere. There's one person that we really do need to thank also that's no longer an elected official. Ken Manus, thanks for what you did to make this become reality during your appointed term on the board, which was your second time serving on the board. One of the more important things after the school is going to be the houses that are built around here, and I want to say I am impressed. I was talking to Herschel Huff, and he said he started that big brick house in October, and it's come this far in 2 months. Would you sell it? So if you're interested, and thanks for what you do. The Board of Mayor and Alderman and the school board has worked very close together, and I want to thank the school board for keeping the price and helping with the overruns and making this school a reality. This community is going to be a growing part of Kingsport that's going to be important to each and every one of us. And it's caused by the cooperation from the citizens, the school board, and the BMA working together. And this has not always been the case, and I think we have a great relationship with the school board. I think they work very hard to keep the costs down and to meet the Board of Mayor and Alderman halfway, and that is so important. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thanks, Dr. Getsmeyer, to you and the Board of Education for doing this and working with the BMA, and we really look forward to the first grade attending this school. Thank you.
I also I wanted to wait till now to recognize some other folks that are in attendance. In just a minute, we're going to ask Danny Karst to come and say a few words. But I want to thank Danny and Darren, and I see several others of your family here. We want to welcome you today, but thank you for all that you've done. I've known these guys since watched them grow up, and it's great to see how things come full circle, and so it's good now for me to be able to introduce Danny Karst, and I want to thank him and his family for what they've done for the city of Kingsport.
Well, on behalf of the Edinburgh group, we welcome you all here too. And before I get started, I just want to let you know that my wife last night, as I was preparing my thanks, she reminded me that brevity, being the Presbyterian that she is, brevity would be my friend. So I'll try to keep it brief. You know, when something like this comes along, it's rare, so a lot of times it causes people in the group to have to kind of think it through. We were out here one night, and we was trying to decide what to do, and my brother David said, you know, Danny, when we came to school there, didn't Randy Montgomery kind of embarrass you in a speech class once? And I said, yeah, Dave, I believe he did. Okay, now it's 1979. We've just showed up. It's been 2 weeks here at DB, and I'm in Miss Pridemore's class presenting a speech. You know, we probably didn't have the best education where we came from, and not as quite as good as what they had here. And Randy said, or one of the guys in his group says, "Isn't that ideal obsolete?" Well, I didn't know what the word meant. So anyway, I said, Dave, I believe we got over that, and we was trying to still figure it out. And Herschel said, well, Danny, that's more the reason. And of course, Darren asked Dave and I, our other brother Darren, says, do you all still know what the word means? And we do. We've looked that one up. But, you know, and I think a lot of times what we can't forget either is that a lot of times who lays out the welcome mat, you know, before us is a lot of times how things get going. And when I called Jeff Fleming, only knowing my wife really basically growing up with her, going to Lincoln Elementary School together as classmates, he was so welcoming to us and turning us over to Forrest, Coder, and Alan Webb. Those guys just really, 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 before they even had came out to this property or knew how big it was, they were incredibly helpful. I don't know that we'd all be standing here today had a series of events not occurred. And I think that's what is so grand about this opportunity, is because a lot of times you don't really realize all the things that goes into it. Like, for instance, the night that my brother Darren, you know, when we was in the middle of the BMA work session, he just throws his head over on his lap and says, I've got it. I walk outside and he says, I said, what is it, Darren? He said, I believe tonight's the night we got to make a move. But we had not talked to Jerry Green at First Community about some of the things we need to do, and Jerry the next morning called us and says, boys, thank you for taking care of everything. And Jerry, we appreciate Jerry Green for being agile enough to allow us to step out a little bit in faith and doing that. Thank my brother Darren for when he made the move and the calculated decision that he did. You know, it's just been great. So I think in keeping with that, you know, Dr. Kitzmiller, if I called him at 6 in the evening, he was answering. I mean, those are the kind of informal things that nobody ever gets to hear about in the public, you know, that makes things happen. You know, Mike Billingsley, while he's the intern, he carried the baby to hand it off to this city manager that actually called me during the halftime of the Alabama ball game last year and said, Danny, I got one idea. Make sure we get a circular sidewalk around this thing. I got to go by. I think that's a statement in, you know, of kind of what's going on here today. And so sort of, you know, in closing, we do thank our wives too. We thank our wives for believing in us, and I know sometimes that's more of a personal thing, but it's real. And thank Barge Wagner, particularly Terry Cox, who's been here on Sunday mornings with us, trying to make this thing go. And, of course, Steve Wilson, our chief engineer, great job. And finally, I just want to say that, you know, these are just small deposits that we all make. Given this 12.5 acres is just a small deposit that will affect a tremendous amount of generations to come's lives, much like John was trying to reiterate. So in that light of that, we just feel like that we've been blessed to have an opportunity to just make a small contribution. Important, and every contribution everybody makes is important, but it's just a small little thing that we've done here. So we feel honored. We thank Kingsport. It's a great time to be in this region, and it's a great time to be a part of Kingsport, and we just feel blessed to be a part of it. We thank you all, and thank you for coming today.
Okay, and now it's time to actually move some dirt. So we'd like to invite Ron Jones and Dennis Ward, our aldermen, our Board of Education that are in attendance, the city manager, and myself. If you would get a helmet from the table over here, grab a shovel, and we will meet over to my left, the audience's right.
Okay, everybody. 3, 4, 5. Hey! Whee! Perfect.
Do it again. Recreate this.
There we go.
Okay.